This meeting is being recorded.
So I am now recording, and I deeply apologize to Diane that I forgot to do it when she started. But from now on, it will be recorded, and I hope that I'll be able to upload the Zoom video to our YouTube channel. It's going to be much too big, of course, to send by email, but I'll be able to send Diane the link to it, and since she has the participants list, she can then send a link out to everybody else, and whoever wants to look at it will be able to do so. That might take a little while though. Okay, so that is what I wanted to say, apart from the fact that I'm overjoyed to see Ellen with us and to be able to honor her the way she and her poetry deserves. Diane, back to you.
Thank you, Judy. Before we continue, as the whole world is in the throes of one gigantic interruption with no clear end in sight, helplessly witnessing senseless destruction and the slaughter of innocents on a genocidal level of one vast crime against humanity, let us interrupt this reading to take pause, joining together now in a moment of silence.
Silence.
We will now resume. Back to poetry, whether meant for solace, beauty, bearing witness, or in countless other ways. Ellen's work opens our eyes, all of which you will encounter right now. Here is the story of the hour. More or less at the 11th hour, because she did not find out about this until then, I got an email from Ellen's poet friend, Heidi Greco, saying that she had this poem of Ellen's that we really should include because it had a lot to say about what's going on in the world today. I responded very conventionally, feeling like, oh boy, well, we already have this full lineup of poets and the schedule has been sent out to everybody involved. And so I said, thank you very much, Heidi, but we're really all scheduled already. Well, the universe had other plans and something else was apparently beshert, because just a couple of minutes later, I was reading Ellen's website to see if there was anything I had missed. And yes, there was definitely something I had missed. There before my eyes was a review that somebody had written of a Vietnam era anthology featuring Ellen's poem and some iconic lines. So I immediately realized my error, got back in touch with Heidi, and Heidi, I give you the Chutzpah Award for this event.
Oh, thank you so much for letting me be part of this. Hello, Ellen. It's so great to see you. I loved talking with you on the phone last week. As all of you know, I'm sure Ellen is a fierce believer in peace. And as this poem shows, peace is timeless. It's from the anthology Crossing Lines. And this poem by Ellen S Jaffe is called Vietnam, August 11th, 1966. 11 people die, 187 are wounded. It is a tragedy because they are civilian. 11 people die, 187 are wounded. It is a victory because they are the enemy. 11 people die, 187 are wounded. It is an atrocity because they are ours. 11 people die. Shut off the labels. Taste the darkness beneath. Ask a leg if it is a civilian, an arm if it is the enemy, an eye if it is ours. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you.
The next reader will be Shana. Oh, and by the way, Heidi
Yeah.
was zooming in from Semi-Amu, First Nation land, Surrey, British Columbia, Canada. Our next reader is Ellen's friend and fellow poet, Shana Lambert, who is zooming in from Toronto.
Almost Toronto. It's Vancouver, and I'm here with my
Oh, I'm sorry.
oh, that's okay. My beloved partner, Bob Penner, and we're here also with our behind us, not visible, but in the ether, our loving family, my aunt, my children, our children, and everyone who loves you so, Ellen. Thanks to Voices Israel for organizing this important reading for Ellen. And thank you, Diane, and thank you, Judy Corin, and all the other poets and writers that are here. To Roger, to Joe.
Roger's my husband. And Joe is picking up a good friend, but he'll see the recording.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I'm so glad, Ellen. Inspiring, thoughtful, and compassionate, and full of wonder. That's only a few of the words that describe you and your poets, your words, and our friendship. So I'm going to read two. I'm going to read the poem, My Mother Flew Like a Kite. And then a while ago, December 16th, Ellen sent me something she'd written with her writing group, in her writing group, called Darkness. And I wanted to share it. It's prose, and it's nice to have some of Ellen's prose with the group. My mother flew like a kite. One windy November night, just past Halloween, my mother began to fly. We were going to see a play, Wuthering Heights, Storms of Nature and the Heart. As we walked from dinner to theater, a gust of wind swept her off her feet. My friend and I tried to hold her down, but she flew like a kite into the night sky. A delicate bird with black cloth wings, she rose higher, higher, good witch crossing the face of the moon. Bright bones lighter than air, entering the universe's dark matter, dark energy giving her power until she slowly gravitated back to earth, puzzled by the solid, wet pavement. It took her several years to try again and fly away. And this one's called Light and Dark. It starts with Ellen saying, I said a few words to the close and holy darkness, and then I slept. And that's a quote from Dylan Thomas's final lines of A Child's Christmas in Wales. At this time of year, with the days shortening, the nights lengthening, everything darkening before the winter solstice, and at this time in my life, with more darkness gathering around me, though still I hope much light left, I want to write about darkness rather than light. I feel more attuned to being held by the dark rather than calling for and celebrating the return of the light. It's not that I dislike candles, their warmth and light and hope, or the twinkling colors of the season. But I want to go into the cave, the depths of myself, and think, feel, be open to the darkness before and after being. Just to rest there, in the bulbs, in the dark of bulbs deep in the earth, not needing to do anything, just wait and be in this rich, nurturing darkness that Audre Lorde and bell hooks write about, that Dylan Thomas talks to as it wraps around him like a quilt, a comforter, a quiet living presence after a day of bright and noisy celebration. I want to feel that close and holy darkness, sacred but intimate, an earth mother, warm, not knowing or needing to know, a hollow bowl that could be filled, but is now content to be empty, an emptiness that is open, not cold, barren, or menacing, just there, not yet even holding the beginning dreams and seeds of possibility. A space-time outside of space and time. A resting place. A stillness. A wonder. Thank you. Thank you, Ellen.
It's a different kind of art. It's comforting. The last part came from Dylan Thomas. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shana. By the way, I forgot to read Ellen's bio, but that's okay. We're launched. Let the poetry speak for itself. I could paper this whole wall over here with all the accolades and awards that Ellen has gotten, not just for poetry, but for nonfiction, for really everything she's ever done. I'll just tell you about the most recent award just in. The Ontario Poetry Society has established the Ellen S Jaffe Humanist Award for Poetry. Every other year, they're going to give out $1,000 in awards, $500 for first prize, $100 to 5 runners up. It is open to Canadian and American writers. And I think it's just so sweet that the deadline is going to be every other March 15th, which is Ellen's birthday. Anyone who wants to see a copy of the longer bio, just drop me an email or just contact me, ask somebody what my email is, draywrite@gmail.com. But somebody could tell you what that is. I'll be glad to send it. Moving right along, the rest of the readers are members of Voices Israel, 7 of whom read alongside Ellen a year and a half ago at an event, the event for American and Canadian members of Voices. Our next reader will be Judy Karen. Oh, and the readers, the following readers are going to be reading 2 of Ellen's poems and 1 of their own. Judy.
Thank you, dear Diane. So the 2 poems I'm going to read of Ellen's are Tasting the Light and A Shirt, a Star, a Story, and they are both totally different from each other, and they are both wonderful poems. So I'm starting with Tasting the Light. This one has a prologue, a quote from Anne Simpson's Odysseus and Circe. I taste the light coming through the window. Okay, so tasting the light. Pouring like you into my heart, washing over my skin, falling through glass, lightly, flowing waves and circling particles, currents of surprise, delight. I am water and I am a gull, flying, a gulf wide and deep as Mexico, replenishing after spills and spoils. Okay. You fish me for stars, for pearls, lost boys and missing girls, fallen into the hole of our fears. O is an open mouth, one closed eye and one open, a black hole where light cannot flow out. Now light from the window of opportunity swallows us whole, and we shine, we shine. Okay, and the second one, a shirt, a star, a story. I jewed down the price of the shirts, my co-worker says at a staff meeting, talking about buying T-shirts for our agency's volunteers. The room freezes to silence. I hope you're not offended, says my boss to me, the only Jew present, as if no one else would be upset. I rise to my full 5 feet. Of course I'm offended. What we say matters. I don't care if she meant it or not. Her words still hurt. Blasted to a core I've never known, I go to a nearby store, buy yellow felt, make a star to wear on my sleeve. I leave it on all day and all the next. No one says a word. I am not a child writing a poem at Theresienstadt. Only the poem survives. A woman gassed at Auschwitz-Birkenau in the shadow of birch trees, or an old man smashed like glass on Kristallnacht. My close relatives left Europe years before that war. I am not George Floyd or Breonna Taylor, nor Adam Toledo or Matthew Shepard or their mothers. I am not a Japanese child exiled from Vancouver to a desolate beet farm, or a missing and murdered Indigenous woman on the highway of tears. I survive my brief incident, continue my comfortable life. But the star stands for all of them, all of us, and for those who stand by, doing nothing, as I might have done in another time, as well as the doers of harm, fighting, always, the demons they create, the other, whom they cannot see as human. Thank you, Ellen. And now for my own poem. Diane said, let's be upbeat. And I looked through my poems and I don't really have any upbeat poems. The only upbeat poems I have are humorous light verse. But I decided to choose one which, even if it is humorous light verse, takes issue with 6 or 7 trends of our current period, our current era. So I think I will invite you, as I read it, to try to identify what it is that it's poking the finger at, all 6 or 7 of them. I'm a metrical rhyming poet for the most part, and this is true to form. It's called supersizing. I've often tried to diet. I know all the reasons why, if I want to be alluring, I must sacrifice my pie and my pasta and my pizza and the dumplings in my stew and buttered toast with marmalade. But what's a girl to do when at every opportunity her friends produce a treat saying, this you've simply got to try. It isn't really sweet. And the biscuits in the supermarket all have chocolate topping. Now, chocolate I cannot resist. Once started, there's no stopping. And the Mediterranean diet can't compete with the cachet of a supersized McBurger or Chinese takeaway. So the salads and the vegetables I'm leaving on the shelf, having finally decided to stay supersized myself. But since I know the theory and long for recognition, I've opened my own business as an online dietitian. I've photoshopped my picture, it's uploaded, all can view it, and I'll tell my clients, see, with my assistance, you can do it. No need to waste the myriad facts I've learned but failed to use. I've advertised on Facebook, where I hope for rave reviews and to supersize my income. From the not so modest fee I'll charge the clump who see my photograph and yearn to look like me. Thank you, people.
Thank you, Judy. That was perfect. By the way, Judy was zooming in from Haifa. Our next reader is the chief editor of the Voices Israel anthology, Dina Yehuda, from, correct me if this is not the right pronunciation, Dina, Mitzpeh Netofa, Israel.
Yes, it's correct. Thank you.
Dina,
Apologize, I
unmute
have
yourself.
real problems with my Wi-Fi.
Mhm. Dina, you appear to be frozen. Diane, it looks like Dina is frozen and is going to have to go out and come in again.
I'm so sorry. It's a problem with
Dina, would you like me to,
Wi-Fi.
would you like
I've
to,
been troubling to,
Uh,
so yes, please,
I can read
please,
in your
because I have a
script.
problem with the Wi-Fi.
Just one
Thank
moment.
you. Thank you.
Just let me find what you were going to read. Okay. Okay, got it. This is by Ellen. My great-grandmother went to the movies. When life got too real to bear, my great-grandmother threw on her hat and coat and went to the movies. Lowe's Paradise on Grand Concourse. It happened one night, you can't take it with you. The Jazz Singer, Modern Times, even King Kong. She entered all these lives, these fairy tales that spoke to her heart, even though their language wasn't Yiddish. My mother told me the story, how her grandmother would storm out of the house, transport herself to a starrier, stranger world, then come home calm and comforted, ready to cook dinner. By the time I knew her, movies were long past, though she was still cooking and baking, growing houseplants, watching soaps on TV. I wish I'd been with her in that darkened paradise, age 7 or 8, munching savory popcorn as we take in romance, adventure, glitter, even horror, holding hands at the scary parts, maybe seeing these images she remembers or forgets, being a child in Vidulk, Lithuania, circa 1882, a village she never talked about, lost and alien as worlds on the silver screen, scenes fading, flashing, frozen in her dreams. Ellen had a series of poems about her great-grandmother. The second one is My Great-Grandmother Dreams of the Women of Ravensbrück. If I were with you, my dear ones, meine Kinder, my beloved sisters, I would show you how to make dessert squares with apples and jam, sprinkled with raisins, sweetened with sugar and cinnamon. Pastry rich with eggs and oil to nourish body and soul. I would hold you, tell you stories, sing you lullabies, make you briskets of beef with gravy and simmis to ease your tsuris. Food put together for almost nothing and good for the heart. I would rock your missing children in my arms, name all your babies, banish the evil eye with kisses and healing words. When I sailed alone from Lithuania, age 14, to join my parents and brothers in that unknown America, I was fleeing pogroms and violent hands of village men. The ship was dark, cold, lonely, if not worse. But we made it to safety. I found my family around me on Rivington Street. We survived and thrived. Ventured uptown toward Central Park. The city accepted us. I married, had children, grandchildren, even great-grandchildren to hold and love. Cook for, sing them lullabies. But here in Ravensbrück, you are wedded only to pain, to death, and your love for each other. Binding you together, you tell and retell the old recipes, chocolate torte, Hamantaschen, goulash with noodles, cooking in fantasy, in dreams, stirring the pot with seasoned memories of freedom and warmth, like salt on bread, keeping you alive one night, one day, one moment longer, one kiss, one breath. Zissa Medelach, my sweet girls, I would hold you in my strong and aching arms, closer and closer, feed you with my baking, my plants, the long gone milk of my suddenly flowering breasts. Wow. Dina, I'm sorry, the next reader is Stanley Barkin from Merrick, New York.
Diane, could I just ask a moment? Dina, if you unmute yourself, are you able to read now? And if not, are you able to read? Unmute yourself, because if not, I thought that if your poem, the one that you wanted to read, was one that appeared in any of the Voices anthologies, you could tell me and I could read it for you. I have the complete set on my bookshelf. But if you can read, of course, that's
Yes,
better.
Judy, I'm not able to because I have some real problem with my Wi-Fi, but I'd be very happy if at some point you could read the one from the last anthology.
The one from
about
the
my
last
father walked out.
anthology, volume 47. Hold on.
Yes. Because he walked down that aisle.
Okay, just
Thank
one
you.
second. So I will read Dina's poem for her, Because He Walked Down That Aisle. My father was buried on the hill of tranquility, eyes closed at last on turbulence. Behind him now, the terror of hiding in forests and basements, the stamping feet of constant fear. His body died in New York on a Thursday, the anniversary of his wedding, was flown to Jerusalem on Friday morning, and we, the living, tore our shirts, covered our faces in the mirrors of 3 cities. He would have liked that, having taken the steps of life 2 at a time. He would have breakfast in Belgium, dinner in France, placid now under cold pine, a stone where his warm heart lay. I pray he come to me in his dreams. He walked alone to his chuppah, bereft of mother, father, sisters, brother. Alone out of 50 cousins, the world he had known a burnt offering. Yet here we are, children and grandchildren, even to the 4th generation, with his eyes and smile, because he walked down that aisle. Beautiful poem, Dina.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Judy, for that save. So our next poet is Stanley Barkin of Merrick, New York.
Hi, I will read Deer in the Dundas Metro Store by Ellen S. Jaffe. Early December, the deer comes in from the cold, from the frozen woods of Coots Paradise to the maze of University Plaza. Lost in concrete, she dashes towards a familiar smell. Christmas trees roved outside Metro Grocery. Pino equals home. Sorry, having trouble seeing the small type. Light as wind, she slips through the automatic doors, hungry, disoriented, prances down warm aisles of turkey and stuffing, breakdances her way through fruitcake and fresh fruit, startling children and elderly shoppers. In December, dark despite candles and twinkling lights, Orion rides high with a deer in full flight, smelling of sweat, smelling of autumn. We are all falling like leaves, losing ourselves in parkas and scarves, in malls and decked halls, the lonely rooms of our houses. Call 911, emergency. We need to sedate the deer running loose in the metro market. This instruction of wild into our domestic battle, the wildness bounding like lightning into our daily lives. Finch's dreams. Scientists have found that the vocal muscles of zebra finches twitch during sleep, as they do when the birds sing, and that their brains make the activation patterns they do during song. This is from New Scientist and other publications. As they sleep, the zebra finches' vocal cords thrum as if they were singing, and their brains awake patterns of song. Do they dream of calling to a mate, their bird hearts fluttering? Or of flying, soaring through thin air, branch to leafy branch, singing for sheer joy? Do they dream of piping through fragile pale blue shell, hearing their mother's call? Or of being mother chanting to her young in feathery trills, chords, whistles? Do they know in their highly tuned hearts that songbirds are disappearing, silenced by disaster's toxic air, habitats hit by pollution, pesticides, climate change, and urban sprawl, glass and concrete where once was open field, dense forest, marshy shore? Do they know their music matters to the world? And when we dream, you and I, as still we do, we dream of flying, of singing, of disaster, of loving wildly, even to the breaking of our hearts. On my own poem, I didn't get that message that it's supposed to be uplifting. If so, so this one's not exactly that. This is Shaliach Mitzvah from O Jerusalem, which are poems I wrote when I first went to Israel. In Jerusalem, he gave me $1 to give to a needy man somewhere in New York. A blessed message that I'm told would protect me. The messenger of a good deed comes to no harm. So I carried it like a live coal in my pocket, wondering how I would get through airline security. I fingered it like a worry bead, like a Hindu crystal, all the long journey from Tel Aviv to New York. It glowed hot and fiery all the car trip back to my home in Merrick, Long Island. And all night long, it threatened to burst into flames. The next morning, I drove into Manhattan, sought out a truly worthy-looking homeless man, took out the $1, stuck it in his hand, glad to be rid of it like the flask in the Stevenson tale of the bottle imp. As I turned away, I heard a crack, a sound of thunder. I turned back, and there was fire. Flames burst out of the hand of the homeless man. All the homeless men were burning like the beggars and cripples and poor in the legend of Vlad Tepes. All New York was ablaze. The world, too, was ending in fire, while I was frozen, turned to a pillar of ice. Ellen S. Jaffe, I know it's meant to be weiter for you, but I wish you a safe and beautiful journey into the seventh heaven, where only poets will reside.
Oh, Stanley, I think we're all going to cry now. Thank you. I'm up next. Just collect myself. I am now going to read Ellen's poem called Hair. 2 years and many, oh, wrong glasses, 1 second. Hair. 2 years and many chemos past diagnosis. I'm finally losing my hair, though not yet my head. Handfuls fall out when I brush, shampoo, or simply run my fingers through. Enough so I could craft a small bird's nest, comfy and warm, tight knit. I leave some clumps in our garden beside the iris, the bleeding heart, hoping the birds spot them. Maybe the same birds inhabiting Loma Crozier's poem as she imagines her friend Mary, stuffing birdseed into the bra that covers her missing breast, sparrows and chickadees flocking close to feed. It's good to think of this connection, our bodies missing, derelict parts, helping other creatures, joining us all, heart to heart to heart, as life goes on. And Ellen's poem, My Letter to the World, which in her note, she notes is of course based on Emily Dickinson's poem, This is My Letter to the World That Never Wrote to Me. Ellen's poem, My Letter to the World. This is my letter to the world that writes to me, to all of us, in the language of sea foam and sunlight, tornadoes, typhoons, tsunamis, nature's tongue that can be gentle and loving like a mother animal, or harsh and hurting when we do not respect her skin, her heartbeat, her children. This is my dream for the world. Let us learn before it is too late that love is the force that greens and grows us all. Molecule to mollusk to human, connecting our flowing currents, keeping us whole, restoring our brokenness. These are our hopes for the world. Hear our cries. Teach us to cry before it is too late, before fire, flood, and ice consumes us. Let us shed the old snake skins of greed and hatred, reborn in new and silken, welcome, shining with abundance and new light. I am the world writing in response, hoping against hope for more light, fresher air, water, clean and clear as starlight. I have whispered to you in flowers and fruits, thundered and wept in tornadoes and hurricanes, scorched in drought and fire, opened my heart to rebirth. I want to save my children, not swallow them up. Will you listen? And my little poem, there are 2 words in this poem you might not be familiar with. One is Chihuly, for Dale Chihuly, a very great glass-blowing artist. The second is Shekinah, which has lots of different interpretations, but for this purpose, defined as a perceptible manifestation of God's presence. Tulip reveal. From Seattle after hours, Hong Pham, MD, X-rays, flowers, into a second life in art, supporting Vietnam orphans back home. I'm stunned to barge in on the blooms and view right through the petals swayed, remade a chiffon negligee, a wave on the stalk of pistil and stamen, lifting a billowy lilaced gold. It used to take a Chihuli's eyes to see clear through solidity, the bloom within, the bloom without, the play of light, liquidity, so worthy of the deepest bow to these small flags of Shekinah. And now, Chaim Bitzalel is going to read from Ashkelon, Israel. Yoo-hoo, Chaim, are you here?
Yes, I just unmuted myself.
Thank you.
I'm going to read first Rabbit Blanket Lake. And the quote is, "Here is a story to break your heart." Mary Oliver from Lead. The first year we camped there, my husband, son, and me in our green canoe. A loon family swam there too, one fledgling riding on a parent's back, circling, diving, crying out at night, living their watery lives. Next summer, or was it two, the loons were gone, the lake clear, too quiet, no more fuzzy chick or watchful parents. Did they find a better home or disappear? Our family too was falling apart, plans changing, flight paths rearranging. By next summer, we'd be gone our separate ways. But I want to say this is not just the story of a broken heart, but finding a new start, another blanket of love despite the odds. Very nice. The nuclear family, we all have one. The next poem is Moose Factory. The introduction. I wrote this poem in June 2021 based on an experience I had in June 2008 in memory of the children buried in unmarked graves in residential school, quote, schools, and to honor the children who survived that trauma, soul scarred, and still live their lives and their families and communities. I was in one of those places, she said, watching the Prime Minister make his televised apology in this school at the edge of the Moose River, former site of a residential school, one of those places. The clench of pain in her voice, even now, years later, when she has become a teacher, stays in my mind. From 4 to 15, she said to me, the white writer standing silent on the other side of the office counter, a space divided. She survived somehow, or did she? What parts of her are buried in a graveyard inside her heart? Wandering spirit looking for its home. Ellen Jaffe, 2021. Okay, I was thinking what to read. I was going to read the introduction to the book of Esther. I wrote a book, I published recently a book, The Bible is Not for Children. It's all in rhyming verse with sculptures. And I was going to read the one on Purim. I put the Megillah to verse. But then in synagogue yesterday, they said it was Shabbat Zachor, Shabbat to remember. The commandment to remember is to remember Amalek. Amalek, the perennial enemy, the ruthless enemy. So the Haftorah was about Saul and Samuel. So my father, who came from a place which was in Poland, but is now the Ukraine, changed his name. They changed his name from Bezalel to Saul. So this is the sculpture that goes with it. This is Samuel risen from Sheol to meet Saul. So this is called Saul and the Witch of Endor. King Saul was a tragic king, a king with a tragic flaw. He aimed to please the people and tried to keep the law, but failed when he neglected to cut off Agag's head. Agag, king of the Amalekites, who caused so much bloodshed. Among all the commandments, only one commands to hate. Remember how Amalek attacked, how they tried to extirpate. Saul won the battle, sparing the king and the best of the sheep. Samuel said his kingdom was done, that God would make a clean sweep. Fast forward a number of years, how many one cannot gauge. Saul is suffering from mood swings and violent fits of rage. The Philistines are back again and massing for a battle. When Saul looks at the enemy camp, it clearly has him rattled. He seeks to know the outcome through a dream or oracle. The heavens are as brass to him, God's rejection categorical. He asks his servants if they know of a medium he can consult, even though it's a capital crime to practice the occult. So Saul puts a disguise on and arrives at the medium's door. We never learn her real name. She's called the Witch of Endor. She greets him cautiously at first, not knowing he's the king, but reminding him of the king's own law, suspecting it's a sting. Saul swears a solemn oath to her that he will never reveal, and asks her to conjure Samuel from the dead asleep in Sheol. It's Saul, she recognizes him as Samuel begins to appear. Why have you deceived me? You are Saul, she cries out in fear. Afterwards, he reassures her. He asks her what she's seeing. An old man wrapped in a robe, just like a divine being. Why have you disturbed me? Samuel at once demands. Saul answers that he only wanted to inquire how he stands. You already know the answer. You are God forsaken. You didn't remember Amalek. That's when your crown was taken. It's David who will take the throne when you're with me tomorrow. And so Saul fell down to the earth in wretchedness and sorrow. The Witch of Endor had pity on him and begged him to stay and eat. He had been fasting the entire day, too weak to stand on his feet. Now that I put my life in your hands, let me give you a morsel of bread until you've gathered up your strength, and then depart, she said. He refused to eat once more, but once again she pled, along with his servants, until he arose from the earth and sat on the bed. And after she killed her fatted calf and fed him, he went on his way, knowing it was his last meal, and this would be his last day. I'm sorry. Sorry I chose that poem. It's a heavy poem.
It's a sad poem.
Thank you,
Okay.
Chaya. And now Irene Bloom from Port Townsend, Washington will read.
When I read, I need to sit there.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay. Can you see me?
yes.
Okay. Thank you. I'm reading two poems by S Jaffe. The first is called The House is Eating My Glasses. The house is eating my glasses while my mind is preoccupied with other things. Two friends who are ill in different cities, Sharon in Montreal, Barbara in New York. I send flowers and good thoughts while my mind and heart click like knitting needles dropping stitches. And I check train schedules, planning for the unpredictable. The house is eating my glasses while I read poetry and prepare for Seder. Time to retell the unleavened story of plagues, slavery, flight, while I make my great-grandmother's apple squares, rolling the dough just so, chopping apples, spreading cherry jam. The house is eating my glasses, reminding me of clutter I have to clear, leftover chametz, overflowing itself, spilling out of drawers, over floors, like yeasted bread dough rising up over the bowl, going to waste. What am I not seeing? What do I need to see? Without glasses, I can't drive. Short-term solutions are found, taxis, rides with friends, and I think more favorably about self-driving cars. Glad I can manage reading and daily life. Meanwhile, the house might not stop with my glasses, might develop a taste for keys, trinkets, credit cards and cell phones, CDs, manuscripts, love letters. Maybe there are black holes in the floor, swallowing whatever they want. One day I might wake up to find everything gone, and my house will want to eat me. Even now, my parts are coming apart, words fading, familiar names disappearing, appointment times vanishing into the same void as the glasses. How long before I go out and can't find my way home? How long before daffodils, tulips, lilacs, roses revert to flowers or colored things? And robins, cardinals, blue jays, hawks are just flying noises. My house is eating my glasses. Still, I notice new life on the weeping red bud, get on the GO train, meet a friend for lunch, hear a song I love, enjoy touch and being touched, hold fast to the living surfaces and surprises of this world. Thank you for that, Ellen. The second poem by Ellen S. Jaffe is Plot Twists. Who made up this plot and what were they thinking? Woman finally moves in with her lover after 15 years. Then 6 months later, she's diagnosed with cancer. Love story for septuagenarians. Though in Canada, love does mean saying you're sorry when you are. And then in season 2, pandemic strikes. Locking down the city, the country, the world. Who'd ever believe that? Cancer now a subplot, just one thread in the general panic. What new developments are left for season 3, if the network even decides to continue the series? What's that? Police brutality, systemic racism, protests for social justice. This story's been told before too many times. But there's always another version. It never seems to end the way we want it to. It never seems to end at all. Meanwhile, the couple goes on, cooking, loving, planting flowers, talking to friends and relatives. But people aren't interested in these mundane details. The ratings are slipping. What if they hire another writer or take over the job themselves? Wait, the script writers have added a ray of hope, a new drug, promising, if not a cure, at least a reprieve. But will the coronavirus get her first, or him on an ordinary foray to the supermarket, or bringing food to a friend, despite their masks, their hand washing, their isolation in place? Zoom in for a close-up. What do their faces tell us? Zoom, zoom, zoom. Faces of family, friends, colleagues flash on the screen, each caught in their own story, their individual but interwoven, intersecting lives. As E.E. Cummings said, there's a hell of a good universe next door. Let's go. Wow. On that note, I'm going to read a small poem of mine. It seems to me that today, many of the poems that we've been listening to and reading have echoes of transformation in them. And life is always a cycle. We're entering and leaving cycles, and now spring is coming. So I thought this one would be apt. The title is called First Blossoms. The epigraph is a quote from a poem by Lewis MacNeice, who was an Irish poet. And he said, "And the first blossom is the best blossom, and one from Eden we take our way. The morning after is the first day." I wanted to add that this was written after one of my many years and continuing visits to my mother, who's 97. She's in an assisted living place in Seattle. At the traffic light on the corner of Boren and Spruce, I wait inside my chassis, an armor of steel and glass that separate me from smog and city din. Windows up, I look away from the homeless man standing in the drab March drizzle as he leans in from the curb and hoists a cardboard sign, "God bless, anything helps." I turn up the radio to smother the screaming aid car careening around the corner. And then, as chance would have it, a glance leads me to a rogue tree in an empty lot, bearing the first blossoms of spring, all lovely and pale with promises of fruit. And now the window is down. Sirens turn to birdsong, the air as sweet as Eden's must have been. And I, for a moment, am in the garden, like Eve, just before the first day. Thank you.
That was so heartfelt and beautiful, Irene. Thank you. Irene is my great friend who first told me about Voices Israel. Just one moment. Well, it had to happen. I lost the thread, but oh yes, here we go. Our next reader is Yona Ben Levi from Ashkelon.
Hi, everybody. I feel very honored to be here. It's been a couple years that we've been able to do this kind of thing, and we miss everybody face to face, but Zooming is certainly one way to keep us connected from one side of the world to the next. So I have two poems of Ellen, like everybody else, and I will start with What I Want. What I want is another summer, sweet as plums and fresh picked raspberries. Even I'm just sitting on my deck, wrapped in a blanket, swaddled. Physicians debate about time. Some say it doesn't exist, except perhaps in our minds. Life, the universe, just a series of discrete moments, shorter than nanoseconds apart. But what of carbon dating dinosaur bones? The rise and fall of mountains and of glaciers? My son changing from embryo to infant, child to adult, and the tree we planted the year of his birth, a tiny sapling, now taller than the house. Sunrises, sunsets, ocean tides. I prefer Einstein's idea of space-time, the two inseparable as we live inside its curving, imperfect fabric. November now, leaves raining from the ash trees in our courtyard. 8 or 9 months until another summer. I want. Well, that's pretty cool. So then we go on to even a more serious one. It's called Seeing Monsters. Often it is necessary to go fearward. Barbara Turner Veselago. Free fall. So this is not by Ellen, but it's still an interesting poem, and we are happy to read it. Sometimes I'm afraid to let go. I whisper to my lover in the night. What was that, he asks, as if he had already heard, but needs to hear it again, needs me to say it again. I do, louder this time. Sometimes I'm afraid to let go. Now we're getting somewhere, he breathes, holds me closer, kisses my mouth. Not as if I'm a project to be worked on, but as if we are explorers venturing together on the same journey. Later, I do let go into deep waters. Tell him how naming the fear makes it grow smaller. I know, I've learned that the hard way, he says. This is true of writing, too. Sometimes I'm afraid to let go, but something drives me forward over that edge that is and is not the end of the world. Even if there are monsters out there, they are only sea monsters, monsters we see inside ourselves. Even if I fall, it is only falling. And the edge is a boundary, like a lover's touch, opening to new worlds, memories wanting to surface, possibilities like Rilke's unicorn that need to be imagined to be real. My deeper fear is losing all this, losing the words, losing my mind, my thoughts, my feelings, my dreams. I could want my lover to hold my hand, rub my back when I am lost in that spell. But would that bring the memories back? Still, I would want him to do it just because. Because why? Just because. Now we're getting somewhere. Even if the sea monsters eat all the words, even if they begin nibbling my toes, my breast, the world goes on. Without me, the world will still go on.
Excuse me, Yona. That poem was indeed by Ellen. It was the epigraph that was by somebody else.
Oh,
Please
very
continue.
cool.
Please continue.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Ellen, dear woman. I guess I get to read one of mine. Now, this is a poem that has been in my heart for the last month. And I wrote it a month ago and then kind of rewrote it today. It's a work in progress. I'm not going to say that this is a perfect poem by any means, but the thoughts behind it are where I'm at, and I like expressing them to you people because there's something in the way you all listen that is important for me. It's entitled Playland. Those childhood days with my sister in tow, our grandmother gave us adventures beyond our parents' permission. To live out fantasies and dreams, we had advantages most others could only imagine. Sunny summer days in various parks, we played out games with abandonment and heart. Our favorite was Playland, the rides, and circus-like fun. We hopped on the roller coaster, shoot the chutes, and bumper car rides. Now, as adults, I see we learned from our fearless adventures that up and down and roundabout motions prepared us for lives filled with continuous disruptions, distractions, and downright destructions. Our world has grown smaller with technological advancements, but the intensity of this last month, last 2 years, has us looking back to the cyclical march of war drums and deadly plagues, wreaking havoc once again, like we have returned to some time resembling not the 21st century, but the era we call the Dark Ages. I found myself wondering if we can ride out this decade like we did on the roller coaster rides, hanging on for dear life. I find sometimes I would rather disappear in a tunnel of love rather than embarking on whatever looms around the next corner or climbing to the top of the crest of a high mountain. I would trade in the exhilaration of new views for a good night of sleep without hearing the war drums on the news and in the street.
Thank you,
So
Yona.
chilly.
Thank you. And our final reader is Pesach Rotem from Yofat, Israel.
Thank you, Diane. This poem is called How to Become a Technician of the Sacred by S Jaffe. With practice in every cell and wave of mind and body, moving through the worlds of space and time, Earth becomes water, becomes fire, becomes air. We can breathe in fire, walk on water, swim through earth, and stand sure as rain on meadows of air, thick with grass and flowers. With practice, we can become tides, shells, birds, stars, the speed of light, the fine geometry of 5 and 9 dimensions, an origami we will need to learn. With practice, honing our cells, electrons, particles, and waves, the Mobius strips that convolute our hearts and pattern the intricate, intimate chaos of brain and mind, make our muscles move, our nerves react, smell and taste awaken. We can become pure love, unadulterated, yet containing all alchemy of desire and release, the love that Dante said moved heaven and earth, letting us lose and find ourselves even in the darkest woods, the deepest night, under the turning moon. Okay, this next poem is Precious Energy by Ellen S. Jaffe. Don't waste one drop. Live every day. Love who and what you can, starting with yourself, and tell the people close to you how much you love them. Icicles melting from the eaves, red tulips on the table, blooming with health, that squirrel in the tree, and the wind blowing the branches. Why do we live in a world with fires, warfare, mindless rhetoric about walls and wheels, spinning and falling, tearing us apart? Use the precious energy of each cell, each nucleus, each atom to create a new spark of life. Okay, and this is my poem. It's called The Gift by Pesach Rotem. On our first date, she gave me a gift. It was Raise High the Roof Beam Carpenters and Seymour, an introduction. She told me she had discovered 2 copies in her apartment and she wanted me to have one of them. I accepted gratefully. The next day, I stayed home to read my new book and I saw that one passage was underlined. It was on page 76, where Buddy is sitting on the edge of the bathtub reading Seymour's diary. And it read, I'm a kind of paranoiac in reverse. I suspect people of plotting to make me happy. I pondered deeply. I felt that she was sending me a message, and that if I could just understand the significance of that beguiling passage, I would have a chance at successfully wooing this strange and wonderful woman. On our second date, I jumped right in. Do you suspect people of plotting to make you happy? I asked. What are you talking about? She replied. That sentence you underlined in the book, I explained. I'm a kind of paranoiac in reverse. I suspect people of plotting to make me happy. Oh, I got that book used at the Strand, she informed me. The original owner must have underlined it. Oh, I see, I said. That happened in January 1985. We got married in September. I have spent the last 37 years plotting to make her happy. Occasionally, I succeed. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Pesach, and thank you everyone who has participated today. Ellen, would you like to say some closing words?
I just want to thank you. Thank you all for that gift. It was lovely hearing my words. It was lovely hearing. It was more than lovely. It was so deep to hear your voices in my words. Thank you. Love
Thank
all.
you, Ellen.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Judy, would you like to say something in closing?
I'd just like to say that it was wonderful seeing Ellen and seeing everybody and knowing how many of her friends have come together to honor her. And no, I don't think I can say any more, but thank you, everybody.
Now we will all conclude and cry. L'chaim to everybody and shalom.
L'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim and shalom.
No more words to say, but thank you.
Be good, Diane. Thank you very much, everybody. It was a blessing, a huge blessing tonight.
It was a real blessing.
Yes, and thank you so much to Diane for organizing it all.
Yes, so
Yeah.
much.
Yes, thank you, Diane.
A real mitzvah. I appreciate it so much. Like,
We love you, Ellen.
We love you, Ellen.
We love you, Ellen.
We love you, Ellen.
Sleep well tonight and have a good day, good week. We'll be on each other's wavelength from now on. We have your poems in our hearts.
With everyone's permission, I will stop the recording. And as I said, I hope that I'll be able to send you all a link to it when it's online.